Here's to holiday traditions, the ones that started as a quick laugh but are now irreplaceable. Here's to the recipes that require Grandma's mixing bowl because they just won't taste the same without it. The Chinette brand believes in spending more time on traditions and less time cleaning up. With the Chinette Crystal, Comfort, and Classic collections, we can help make your holiday celebrations better for years to come. Here's to mixing timeless traditions with a few new ones. Here's to us, all of us. To find out more, visit mychinette.com. Here's to holiday traditions, the ones that started as a quick laugh but are now irreplaceable. Here's to the recipes that require Grandma's mixing bowl because they just won't taste the same without it. The Chinette brand believes in spending more time on traditions and less time cleaning up. With the Chinette Crystal, Comfort, and Classic collections, we can help make your holiday celebrations better for years to come. Here's to mixing timeless traditions with a few new ones. Here's to us, all of us. To find out more, visit mychinette.com.
Welcome, friends, it's the Movie Film Podcast. Movie Film Podcast, enjoy the show. Zachy and Brian are talking about the movies. Movie Film Podcast on the radio.
Welcome to Movie Film. This is episode 281. I am Zachy Hassan, and I'm joined by Brian Hall.
Hey, how's it going, Zachy?
Oh, you know, it's the end of 2023. And I feel like it's time to start the process of planning what resolutions I will make that I will not keep.
Okay.
That's sort of that's where my head is at right now.
What inspired this? Was there something where you were like, "Oh, I should do that," and I look forward to not following through on that next year?
Basically once we're in the post Thanksgiving lull, you start taking stock of how little you've accomplished in a year, or at least that's me.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, well, what goals will I not meet and then be disappointed about a year from now?
Do you have something? I mean, do you want to talk about this year? Was there something that inspired this specifically?
Not particularly. You know, I've started gradually weaning myself off of resolutions because I'm like, well, if I set no goals, I can't be disappointed.
You know, I'm trying to think. I'm not a huge New Year's resolution person. If there's something that's already on my mind, maybe, like, I don't try to sit down and make a list necessarily. Mm-hmm. But yeah. For example, a couple of years ago, I was like, I want to read more.
Mm-hmm. And I set out. Done that.
I have. And this is for the past couple of years, I did read. I tried to do 12 books, you know, like one for each month for a year. Wow. And I did do that. But some of them were admittedly, you know, short. I was revisiting some books from high school that are like Lord of the Flies and things like that. They're not very good.
Hop on Pop.
Yes. But I did, this year I did not do as well, but I'm like at like 6 or something. And I still feel good about that. But that was something I really wanted to do. And I'm in the middle of a book right now. So yeah, that was a good one. That was something I wanted to do and I set out to do it. I mean, do you have something that you want to actually try to set out to do next year? Or
well, I talk about the last several. I put on some pandemic weight, Brian. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm packing a little bit of a spare tire or 3.
I can't relate.
So that's like, okay, definitely. That was me at the start of 2023. I'm like, I'm going to be doing some crunches. I'm going to be knocking that sucker right out. And that has not borne out.
You know, the thing that's always kind of interesting, just speaking of my own story, like I was always a really, really skinny kid, like all the way through college. And then you get used to the scale being like 1 and like a 3 or something, or a 4. And then all of a sudden you're like 1.5. You're like, oh, wow, I've never seen a 5 there before. And then it's like 1.6. You're like, wow, 1.6. How about that? And then it's like 1.7. You're like, oh, this can continue. You know, like, yeah. So yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. Actually, just this morning I was on Reddit and I was reading. Someone posted like, how can I get rid of just that in my 30s? How can I get rid of this belly?
Yeah,
and it's funny because someone put, well, you know, cut back on the soda, blah blah blah, and then the guy was like, what if I already don't drink soda?
Oh, no.
I was like, yeah, I hear you, man.
At that point, you've trimmed all the ballast. There's nothing left, right?
I know.
It's just you at that point.
I know, but that's I really was. I know this is like our health podcast, but like there was a minute I'll never forget this. I was walking with you and Sean up in your neck of the woods.
Yeah,
and we were walking, and I think you said like you patted me on the belly, and you were like "welcome" or something like that. You made some joke about me having.
That sounds like a Sean thing, to be honest. That sounds like Sean more than
that might have been it. And then one of you, maybe it was you. One of you said, "I was like, well, I'm going to get rid of it," and one of you was like, "Sure, you will." Or something. And it really was motivation. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I used to drink soda a lot because at work they had a fridge just stocked with everything. So I was like, all right, no more soda. I'm going to drink like sparkling water. And I'm not going to eat after like, 9 at night and blah, blah, like cutting back on carbs. And I legit did lose noticeable weight. And it was great. And I was so proud of it. And I'm still bragging about it to this day, even though I have not kept up with it for like 5 years.
Hey, so, you know what? You take the victories where you can, right?
Yeah. It's like talking about an old high school football victory, like 20 years later.
You're like Al Bundy. Yeah.
Yeah. 6 years ago, I shaved a little bit off. Yeah.
I mean, the pandemic before the pandemic, Brian, for me, it was like, remember Daniel Craig rising out of the surf in Casino Royale?
Yes. That
was me. I mean, it was like looking in a mirror. Less so now, but I'll get there. Hey, 2024, maybe that's my moment to shine. So we'll see.
All right, let's do it.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So for the 2 or 3 of you who are left listening after that weird digression that we went on, about gaining weight in your 40s. Didn't plan that when we started. I was just kind of starting a conversation. Wow.
Yeah.
That's what happens on this show. We don't know where it's going to go.
I love it though. I gotta throw it out here, by the way. We talked about this off mic, but I'm using a new microphone for this episode. So apologies if there's any technical weirdness going on. I'm still finding the hang of it, but I gotta say,
you're a little more mobile now.
Yes, I was. So basically I was using the Blue Snowball microphone, which I love. I think it sounds great. However, recording in my office created this huge echo. So I'd have to go in the bedroom. So I'd be like sort of sitting on a bed, but I also had this like, microphone stand mechanical arm that was right in front of my face that I was barely seeing over. And my arms were restricted to how I could type and look things up. Like I just felt sort of caged in, and I feel so free right now. I'm using this headset that you recommended, and I'm in the office. I think the echo is not being picked up from my test.
It seems okay.
But, oh man.
Although, Brian, I gotta
be it feels so great.
I'm going to miss your caged animal energy that you brought to every recording.
Yes. Yeah, maybe there's a little hunger spark or something.
Yeah, I don't know what this is going to be like.
We'll see.
But with that in mind, I know you've seen a few things. What's new on your docket that you've partaken of lately?
Well, I thought I'd throw out there that I watched this sports documentary on Netflix called Beckham, which is obviously about David Beckham, and he being one of the world's most famous athletes. I was just amazed how little I really knew about him, except that he was this handsome dude who married Posh Spice and played soccer. Like I really knew nothing about him. So I wanted to check this out. And, I think we're not huge sports guys, but we love sports documentaries. And I was really interesting. I got to say, I didn't find it as sort of riveting as like The Last Dance per se. And I don't know if that has to do with the fact that I wasn't as caught up with the events that happened, or I wasn't nostalgic for them. But I found myself compelled in him as a person, and he's an interesting guy, and he seems to be a pretty nice guy, which is always kind of nice to, you want to root for that. But yeah, I just, as someone who knew very little about him and knows very little about soccer or football, depending on where you live, it was just, I thought it was worth checking out. But like I said, I don't think it reached that like, oh man, I got to click on the next one heights as some of the others that you and I have checked out.
Okay.
But have you heard of this, or have you seen it? Or
I hadn't even heard of it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's funny, and maybe someone may correct me who's more familiar with him, but I think part of it also was I would chuckle a little bit at the stakes or lack of stakes occasionally. It would be like, David Beckham got this contract, for $250 million to play in Los Angeles, but he really wished he was playing somewhere else. I'm like, oh, that's awful. And Victoria Beckham, is all like finally happy in Los Angeles, and then she's got to move, somewhere else. And I mean, actually, I felt more sympathetic to her, like having to move the kids around and find different schools and, continually setting up new houses and whatnot. But it was just like, for him, it was just, he had, don't get me wrong, early in his career, he had this, he got a red card during a really important game, got kicked out, and everybody blamed a loss on him because of that. And having a whole nation angry at you, that cannot feel good. So there are some stakes in there, but I started laughing a little bit, or chuckling to myself, as it went on, where it was like they were searching for stakes. It felt like, but
so he's retired now, right?
Well, no.
Okay.
I guess he owns a team now that I think, oh man, I know I just watched this, but I think it's in like Florida or something. I think he owns a team. So you just can't keep him down. But he seems like the thing that helps. He seems like a nice person.
But he's not playing. He's like front office now.
Yeah, he eventually had to retire, and then it cuts to him like, well, now I built a little. Remember Billy Madison, where he like built that tent when he wanted to do his own personal hobbies out in his mansion's front lawn. Yeah, he basically did that in retirement, where he like grilled all day, and his family would come, into the tent like, hey, David, and he's like, hi, want to try a scallop? Kind of a thing. And I was like, that looks like a nice life. I'd love that life. And then he's just like, but it's not what I want, And so then he left his tent on his mansion's front lawn and started a new team. You can't keep this guy down. I say this all jokingly, but I guess I didn't even mention it to my dad, and I was talking to him. He's like, oh, I watched this Beckham thing. It was pretty interesting. So I was like, yeah, it was good. So there's that. There's that on Netflix.
Well, so it's gotten the Pops Hall seal of approval.
Yes, yeah, that's right. That's right. I know some people are now interested in my dad's what he's checking out, and he enjoyed it. He enjoyed it. So
there you go.
For the same reasons, we just weren't familiar with him, and I think it does do a good job of catching you up, on all the big moments of his trajectory and his worldwide popularity.
Yeah.
I'll mention two movies real quick because they're in theaters, and I don't know if you've seen either of these, but they are the movies right now that are out besides the one we're talking about. But I saw Wish.
It seems like one is more the movie than the other of the two you're going to mention.
Oh, interesting. I'm curious which one you think that is.
Well, just in terms of box office, I think it's the latter. It's not Wish.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, well, and that seems to be the story right now, that these movies, the quote unquote big movies, they're just kind of all underperforming and not, setting people's imaginations on fire. I don't know, however you want to say that. But Wish. So Disney, this is their 100-year anniversary, and this was their big animated offering, and I didn't realize this until I saw it, but apparently it's supposed to even feature a lot of Easter eggs for their past films. It's like a real celebration of their 100-year history. It's about wishing on a star. And I had no plans on seeing this, but we went and saw it with some friends of ours and their daughter, and it's okay. Yeah. I don't know. Like I had heard that people weren't really digging it, and I was like, I mean, it's a fine 90 minutes if you want to put your kids in front of something. I mean, that sounds really whatever. I just, I think the protagonist doesn't have a lot of. She's not very interesting. She doesn't have a lot. Like, she feels like if you took every Disney protagonist and put them in a machine to create one ultimate protagonist, it's like, yeah, but then she has nothing specific about her. She's just a really, hey, I love things. Don't you love things? I wish everybody else loved things. Kind of like kind of a person who spins a lot and articulates with their hands a lot. Yeah, it's all right. I don't know. And the villain is just kind of a general guy, wants to take people's wishes away from them, and they sort of follow him like some sort of cult leader without realizing that he's draining them of all their ambition. And so she wishes on a star and gets the ability to try to set everything right. And the songs are fine. I couldn't hum one back to you right now. But it's okay. But I think that's certainly not okay. Is not what Disney was setting out for.
I was about to say, like, I think they were hoping for more. I mean, the opening weekend for this one was an underperformance.
Yeah.
And I don't see it recovering anytime soon. And I think this gets to, I was having this conversation in my class, actually. I was like, I think the lesson of the year is that Disney Plus killed Disney.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think that a whole lot of people who may have been inclined to watch Wish were probably like, I'll wait till it's on Disney Plus.
Oh, totally.
Right?
Totally. Yeah. No, I definitely think streaming really, really screwed up a lot of things. Like, it might have seemed exciting and profitable at the beginning, or potentially profitable, but I think it really, really, they didn't realize what they were doing to themselves.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, right, Disney Plus launched just before the pandemic, when everybody was stuck at home anyway.
Uh-huh.
And so there was sort of an extenuating factor that led to people just watching stuff, at home. And yet this year, whether we're talking about the Marvels, whether we're talking about Indiana Jones, even, certainly when it comes to Disney output, it's been, I'll get to it when I get to it.
Here's to holiday traditions, the ones that started as a quick laugh but are now irreplaceable. Here's to the recipes that require Grandma's mixing bowl because they just won't taste the same without it. The Chinette brand believes in spending more time on traditions and less time cleaning up. With the Chinette Crystal, Comfort, and Classic collections, we can help make your holiday celebrations better for years to come. Here's to mixing timeless traditions with a few new ones. Here's to us, all of us. To find out more, visit mychinette.com.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I mean,
yeah.
I think, like, because you and I were talking about it last week, or the last time we did a regular show, about Five Nights at Freddy's, and the fact that movie is doing really well, despite the fact that it's available, day and date. It was on Peacock.
Right.
And my takeaway is, well, that's because nobody's got Peacock.
Yeah. And, but I will, to give that movie a little credit. I mean, well, it comes from a game that's wildly popular. And as someone who didn't love it, I did admire, I was like, I don't know what's going to happen next. This is kind of interesting. Like, what if the animatronic Showbiz Pizza animals killed people? Okay. But Wish is just so wildly not specific. I mean, you think of the Disney movies we love that we grew up with. I mean, well, let's go all the way back. Pinocchio and you can talk about all the iconography. You can remember all the songs. You remember what Pinocchio was like. You remember what Aladdin is like and the genie. And, there's so much specificity. And this really did feel like all that stuff in a blender to the point of having no personality. And that's kind of a bummer. But it's also not terrible. That's the thing, right? I think I went in knowing that people weren't crazy about it. So when I walked out, I had the attitude of like, well, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it also wasn't, it didn't feel special.
Okay.
But yeah. So are you going to show it to your kids or? I
mean, I'm not planning on watching it, but I suspect in the week and a half that it takes to show up on Disney Plus, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
That to me is just like, as a matter of just sort of dissecting the corpse. I mean, I draw a straight line between all the money and resources that they poured into Disney Plus, and the net result has been just one bomb after the other. I don't think you can disentangle those.
No, I completely agree. And what I'm saying right now also reminds me, the last movie we talked about on this show was the Marvels.
That's
and
right.
I remember when we ended that show, I thought, am I being like too nice to this movie? Like, everybody seems to be so hard on it, and we seem to give it a little grace. And I was like, why is that? And then I was like, you know why? Because again, it was shooting for something. And I think I wish the execution had been better and felt a little bit more thought out, and they had been a little more patient and taken time with character and motivation and whatever. I think it could have been a richer film, but I admired that it had an idea, and it was shooting for that idea. And I think that was what made me so charitable toward it. And this reminds me of why a lot of movies have been disappointing, when it just feels like maybe made by some sort of spreadsheet to try to please a lot of different things. And then you come up with something that just doesn't feel unique,
Right.
Or cover bases is a better way to say it.
Well, with that in mind, I'd love to hear your thoughts on your next thing.
So I also checked out Hunger Games. I think it's called A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
Yes.
And I didn't even realize, by the way, that a new book had come out, that this was based on another book. And this was another one that I had not planned on checking out, but a friend of ours wanted to go, and she wanted to see it in 4DX, which I've never experienced. And I was like,
that's the seat shaking version, right?
Water squirting in your face. Yeah. So that was my main reason for wanting to see this. And I guess it's important to say, I read the first Hunger Games book, and I was like, okay, yeah, I get it. But I didn't feel compelled to keep going. And the movies, I wanted to feel more engaged with them than I really did. And I sort of checked them out of obligation or seeing them with friends. And I haven't thought about them since. So, I mean, if you're a huge fan of the series, maybe your mileage may vary. So I went in like completely disinterested in this, like more like, I want to see what it's like when a seat shakes in a movie theater. And I thought it was okay. Again, going in with really low expectations, actually expecting to not enjoy it. It had my attention for sure. And I don't think it's anything to write home about either. So it's like, it's one of those hard things where I don't exactly know what to say. Like, I went into a theater and I was, oh, okay, well, I wonder how they're going to get out of this. Like, oh, that's interesting. And then it actually has like a 30-40 minute act 4 basically to it that I did not expect. That I was like, oh, I was kind of curious what would happen after this. Okay. Like, I was engaged with it, but I don't think I would watch it again. Unless you're into this world, I don't know that I would recommend devoting your time to it. But I can't say that I wasn't, engaged for the 2.5 hours I spent with it. So it's one of those weird ones, it's kind of hard to express. That's so. But the other thing too is, like, you've seen 3 or 4 movies of kids in an arena trying to kill each other. So it's really more about, you have to care about these people. Right. That's the only way you can make that interesting. And I did find the whole conceit of this guy who's a mentor to one of the kids in the ring, trying to figure out how to support her from afar, and this weird sort of bond that develops between them, and how that can be fractured or how it can be mended along the way. And, like, I thought it did a good enough job to make me not feel like I wasted my time.
So does it allude to the later films in a ham-handed way, where it's like, oh, hey, that's that thing that I know.
My gosh, Zachy, I'm going to spoil it. So for anyone who's,
I was just joking, but okay, I didn't realize.
There's literally a moment where the mentor and the main girl are by like a riverbank, and she picks up a flower, and she's like, oh, this is like perugula flower, but I prefer to call it Katniss.
Dude, that's so funny. I was literally going to ask if there was like a really obvious name drop for Katniss. I
100%. And I was like, really? Is that how it's like? And did someone have to tell someone else that she said that once, so that name could be passed along and have some importance in the 100 years in the future? Like, I don't know. But yeah, not a terrible watch. Not a terrible watch.
That reminds me of at the end of the Hobbit trilogy. Which you've never completed, as far as I remember.
Oh, the Hobbit one, no.
Yeah. It ends with like Legolas is like they just like shoveled him into the second and third movie. You know, well, actually, he's in all three of them, but like he has like a pretty big role in the third one. But anyway, his father's the king of the elves. He tells Legolas, he's like, there's someone out in the wilds. You should find him. His name is Strider or something like that. And I was like, wouldn't Aragorn be like 5 years old or something? Like,
right?
Because it's set long. Like, it's very. And I'm not a student of Tolkien and all that stuff, but maybe somebody can clarify that. But I remember being like poked by that a little bit because I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't even make sense, you know?
Right? Isn't this the way past?
Yeah, right. I mean, because I think The Hobbit it's got to be like 80 years before Lord of the Rings.
I don't know.
Anyway,
I feel like this is way too specific a reference. I was gonna never mind. So, but I want to ask: have you seen a 4DX movie?
I have not, and I have very little interest in experiencing that. To be honest, it sounds horrifying.
Okay, so yeah, I would not do it again. It was interesting to experience. Before it starts, they do a little trailer. You know, like IMAX has the countdown and like, we're going to show you what IMAX is capable of with sound and visuals. So they have one of those sort of teaser things at the beginning, and it shows this action film, and your seat is just jerking left, jerking right. Like they spray water in your face, like these puffs of air go past your ears. I was like, holy crap, I can't do this for 2 hours and 30 minutes. Like this is going to be a nightmare. And they showed the Aquaman trailer, and that was calibrated to all the thing. I was like, oh man. But I got to say, thank God, like the whole movie isn't like that. I mean, it really is just action scenes, but it's weird because there'll be moments where it's very sad and a character like is watching someone being hung from like a tree. Mm-hmm. And then when the person drops, your seat is like ka-chunk. I was like, that's a little tasteless, right? Like, you know, and someone got stabbed and I felt a poke on the back of my seat. That was kind of weird. Okay. But there are other moments where it's kind of amazing. Like they'll step out of a building and you will feel it's not aggressive. You'll just feel this slight breeze go through the theater. And it was really effective. I that was my favorite one. It made me feel like I was outside every time they did that. That was pretty cool. And at the end of the movie, a character is walking and it's snowing. And they actually made it snow in the theater. That was a good one. Oh, and then something falls over on dirt and like a puff of on screen, you know, like smoke and dust and whatever is fluffing up. And in the theater, they released smoke that matched it. So it was like, wow, okay. Like, yeah. Like, I'm glad I saw what that was like. But it also, I think, encouraged people to talk more in the theater. And the people in front of us, we've spoken about this. If there's like a well-timed zinger, you know, amazing. Like, well, like, good for you. But like these people were just straight up just talking and saying things out loud. And it was like, and I didn't like that. And also I didn't like being jerked around, you know, while kids are dying on screen. But like, so then what's the next movie I watched? Oh, Napoleon. There was a trailer for Aquaman, and I kid you not, I had PTSD. As soon as that trailer started, I sort of was like, oh, I don't want my seat to shake. And I was like, oh wait, no, it's not going to do that here, Brian. You're safe. So yeah, it was
Brian.
Yeah.
I would love the 4DX version of RoboCop where it's the scene where Alex Murphy is killed. They're like, no, make it stop.
Yeah.
There's like blood packs exploding in your face.
Dude.
Yeah, maybe I would want to see that.
Yeah. But no, once was interesting to know what's going on in Theater 7, but like other than that, I don't know. I think I'm good.
Okay. Well, you know, last night I watched Godzilla Minus One.
Yeah, right. I saw you posted about that.
Yeah, and I watched it in a Dolby theater, and you know that was enough where the seats were shaking with the noise and stuff. And I was like, I don't know that I want more than that. You know what I mean? Like,
just from its own traditional sound design it was making.
Exactly. Like, and you can feel your seat vibrating. I'm like, that's cool, you know?
Right.
But I don't need more than that, to be honest.
No, I agree.
But Godzilla Minus One, dude, Brian. Oh my gosh, this movie.
Really?
Oh, it is fantastic. It's like probably one of the best movies I've seen this year.
Dude, this was not even on my radar. And you know me, I'm not super into the monster movies. I almost feel like ashamed in like what people love them so much and I just can't. But like I believe you. Like I really loved the Shin Godzilla movie where it was a lot about like, no, really, what would it be like if this happened? And it followed a lot of the people and I think this is similar, right?
It's similar but different, right? I think that's what's really cool, right? Because so this is set in the aftermath of World War II, so kind of closer to the milieu when the original Godzilla movie was made, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like kaiju on kaiju, it's just Godzilla. Godzilla is not a hero, he's a monster. Who's destroying Japan right after having already experienced the firebombing of Tokyo and everything else. You know what I mean? So it's placed in a very specific historical context, and our main character is a kamikaze pilot who didn't do his job, right? Because he's still around.
Wow, you already have me. That's an interesting character,
right? And by the way, Godzilla is in it. You know, it's
right.
Like that. No, Brian, you're gonna love this movie. I don't even like. I know that. I know you're gonna love this movie,
dude. I'm excited. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's so good. I was really like. I mean, I watched it last night, and I wasn't planning on seeing it right away. I was like, I'll get to it when I get to it, and I just kind of worked out. You know, Pervez was seeing it. He's like, hey, I'm going. You know, I was like, oh man, I'll check it out too. I've been like just thinking about it since yesterday. You know, it's so well done.
Mm-hmm.
And the thought, like he said this, he's like, man, there's something very Nolan-esque about it, where it's kind of more of a grounded approach to Godzilla, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And my thought is I kind of love that Toho is at a point where they're like, let's do a Godzilla set in this time period and see what that's like.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Let's do a Godzilla. It's more like this and see what happens there, you know? And you know, it makes you say like, yeah, I'm kind of like, hey, let's do a period Batman story. You know, let's do Gotham by Gaslight and see what that's like.
Dude, yeah. I mean, that is so up my alley. I love that stuff.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I love that the legendary Godzilla films are still going. They got Godzilla vs. Kong 2 coming out.
Right.
But we got this too. You know, there's lots of different flavors for this story, you know, for that character.
Yeah. Well, great. Okay. Like I said, I think I just saw that it existed. Yeah. And now I'm excited to have something new to be excited about.
Yeah. I hope we get to talk about it again before the year is out.
Yeah.
Let's take a short break. We got some listener letters.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry. We were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right. ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
And we're back, and hey, boy, we got a lot of letters since the last time we recorded, not only from our regular show, but from commentaries. This is from Mark Lachance, who wrote in about our Jaws 2 track, and he says, well, this is another interesting deep cut. I agree that this film, like Psycho 2, is a decent sequel whose reputation was tarnished by subsequent inferior entries, and I think another film that falls into this category would be Halloween 2. I'm assuming that's the John Carpenter Halloween 2 and not the Rob Zombie. It's not Rob Zombie, right? Didn't he do the remake? Yep. Yeah, I'm assuming it's that. I would assume that's Halloween. What a freaking goddamn mess of multiversal warping that is, right? Like,
right.
I'm waiting for that, like the Spider-Man No Way Home of Michael Myers movies.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
You know, here's the Tyler Mane Michael Myers. Here's the, this guy, whatever. I don't know their names.
Yeah, but one of them hasn't experienced a trauma, and so then the other
just a normal one. Yeah, exactly.
Through it.
Finally, Keith Gordon, aka the Steven Spielberg looking guy in Jaws 2, is not only a director, but he also had a pretty decent acting career in such classics as Dressed to Kill, Christine, and Back to School.
Oh, funny. Back to School. I don't think I've ever seen that. Rodney Dangerfield, Danny Elfman score, like total 80s sort of.
I'm fairly certain I haven't seen it either.
Yeah.
I think the Dangerfield oeuvre has sort of passed me by.
Yeah. The only one I remember was Ladybugs. Do you remember that about the all-girls soccer team? And so
is that with Jonathan Brandis?
Yes, he brings in, I think his son or stepson is like a ringer, and so he puts a wig on and joins the all-girls soccer team.
Yes, that's funny. Like early 90s.
Yeah, but I was gonna say it's weird. There was like a weird little era for us. I feel like where this older stuff, if you want to call it boomer stuff, like we were sort of aware of it, and it was kind of like, hey, why not make a Rodney Dangerfield movie for 12-year-olds? Like, all right. And I was like, yeah, I know who that guy is. We were watching this stuff. I don't know how that happened.
True. I mean, he had a run there, which is kind of remarkable in hindsight.
Yeah, and he had an animated movie where he played a dog. Remember that?
Rover Dangerfield.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I realize that there's like a portion of our audience that's going to be like, what in the world are you people talking about?
I know. I was trying to like if when we were kids, someone talked about Milton Berle or something. I know that name.
I mean, there was a time there where comedians would have these animated shows.
Yes. Wait, who else are you thinking of? I mean, obviously, there was Candy and stuff, but
there was Camp Candy. Yeah.
Oh,
there was
Louie.
Exactly, Louis Anderson show. There was also a Roseanne cartoon.
But at least those people were in their like 30s, right? Like Rodney Dangerfield.
Hey, that's fair.
He was like in his. It's just interesting, like what kids were, I guess, staying up watching the Tonight Show with Carson and seeing these older comedians and developing some sort of relationship with them. I don't know.
Okay. So this is the thing, because yesterday I was watching in one of my classes, I was screening the documentary about the Dana Carvey show.
Oh, I gotta watch
dude, I know, I've been telling you for years. You really should.
Yeah.
But I show it as an example of how the industry works, and specifically how it worked in the 90s. In terms of network and creative ends versus commercial ends and all that stuff. But as I was screening it, I was like, you've got talking head segments with like Stephen Colbert and, Steve Carell, et cetera. And I'm like, most of these kids probably know Steve Carell, but I'm like, Dana Carvey, they have no idea who he is.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying that like, how dare they, right? I mean, that's just, why would they know who Dana Carvey is?
Yeah.
Right. But I'm contrasting that with certainly when you and I were in our early 20s, we knew about the comedians from 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. And so what's changed is how there's no need to be like, oh, well, this is what's on, so I'm watching it. Because everything is so micro-targeted.
I was going to say, yeah, it must be like monoculture stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is Gramps, some Gramps energy, but I mean, it makes me sad, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Dana Carvey, I listened to, what's it called? That podcast with him and David Spade, and they bring SNL people on. And I mean, I have like an affinity for him. You know, I mean, he was huge. He was a superstar when we were kids. You know, like SNL, of course, but like Wayne and Garth and everything. You know, so it is weird that he did not find that television show or whatever it is to continue, you know? And I mean, he has, like, I think he's a successful touring comedian, but it's just,
he's not
like Mike Myers.
It's not like he's parking cars.
Exactly. No. I mean, he's still freaking hilarious. I mean, there was like in the early days of the Conan Needs a Friend podcast, they had like a series. It was like 5 episodes of just Conan and Dana Carvey talking and riffing. And I was laughing so hard. I mean, he is still hilarious, but it's just funny how he hasn't found like I say, like a show, like I said, he tours, he's a comedian, and I'm sure he does very well, but it's weird, right? Like that he hasn't, like Mike Myers, right? With Austin Powers, like he found these characters or movies to continue and keep pushing a little bit, right?
But even Mike Myers, I would say, is about 15 years removed from like today's generation in terms of somebody who they're familiar with.
For sure. Now, yes. Yeah, I agree.
Like I would say, let me put it this way, Brian. I would say that out of that whole code array from sort of like our SNL era, 30 years later, the biggest star, like in terms of still being a star, Adam Sandler.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
And I sure as shit wouldn't have predicted that back then.
No. And it's like, yeah, younger generations know who he is and love him. And now I saw like his daughters had a movie on Netflix that he like produced. And yeah, he just found whatever that was. He found his lane, you know?
Right. Like, cause I'm like from that era, right? You know, Mike Myers, Dana Carvey, Kevin Nealon, Chris Rock, Chris Farley, Sandler, Spade, Rob Schneider.
Yeah.
Phil Hartman. Tim Meadows, right? Like roughly, that's right, kind of.
Yeah.
To me, that's like my golden era of SNL, right?
Same.
And out of all of those people I listed, well, I mean, obviously not the people who passed away, but like they're all doing okay. Chris Rock, obviously, but like in terms of somebody who like young people today, Adam Sandler. I know who that is. You know.
You know, I wonder if this is a part of it, but Adam Sandler. What we love about him, what we want to see in every one of his movies is his persona, right? And Dana Carvey, sometimes I see these people on sketch shows and it's like, oh, this is like the perfect venue for you where you get to play all these, like Tracy Ullman or something, right? Like,
right.
You are a master at playing these different characters and it's like you need that venue to do the thing you do best. But like Dana Carvey as a person just kind of seems like a normal guy. But like Adam Sandler just has to wear his basketball shorts and oversized long sleeve t-shirt. And that's the movie, you know, like that's Adam Sandler, right?
Like you can't do a Dana Carvey impression, but plenty of people have an Adam Sandler impression.
Exactly. Yes.
Right. That's so you weren't in the audience for Master of Disguise is what you're saying.
No. And that's the thing, right? Like I say, Mike Myers had Wayne's World, of course, but then he had Austin Powers for, and that was huge for like a while, right? Extended his life, right?
Yeah.
Comedy life. But like, unfortunately,
then he did the Love Guru
find that
and
character.
Yeah.
Wait, what were we saying?
I said, then he did the Love Guru and that was
right.
That.
Which is crazy how it just all that love and goodwill just like completely crashed and burned
in an instant. Who knew that Mariska Hargitay is not a good punchline or whatever?
Yeah, like some sort of mantra line or whatever. Yeah.
But what I remember about Master of Disguise is that his Dana Carvey's character, his name is Pistachio Disguisey.
You know, maybe that's part of the problem, though, because that sounds like something for people younger than us at the time.
Right. Yeah. Here's another note we got from Mark McGee. Different Mark. He says, "Hey guys, just discovered your podcast today on Spotify and gave a listen to the Jaws 2 commentary while watching the film." I always love when people watch the movie along with hearing us talk.
It's very gratifying.
Right?
I almost never anticipate that, to be honest. I sort of imagine it just as something people listen to, but yeah, it's very cool.
I love that. So he says, "I first saw the film for my 14th birthday when it was first released. I actually saw it before the original because my parents thought I was too young. Eventually, I saw it when it was re-released in 79. I've always enjoyed Jaws 2, and it was fun to hear similar reactions from you both, especially the, well, it ain't Jaws 1 quote after the scene with the unfortunate woman in the boat." You rightly compared that scene to Family Guy. It always reminded me of an early Jerry Lewis movie. I really enjoyed the episode and look forward to listening to others. Have a great holiday. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
Again, this many years in, the fact that new people discover the show.
I know. I'm surprised every time someone says that.
Yeah. It's nice.
It is nice.
Here's a note we got from Sean Steiner. He says, "Hey guys, this will hopefully be organized before I hit send. Had some thoughts after listening to the Marvels episode." He says, "Number one, I ended up seeing Five Nights at Freddy's on Peacock and shared a similar, it's okay. But for a movie I had little investment in and had alternatives to kill time on, it did keep me watching the entire time. And that's an accomplishment in my eyes. Not enough to get my box office money, but that's on them for putting it on the streaming app I pay $1 for." So there's one. I was wrong, I guess. Some people did discover it on Peacock.
Sure.
It's also neat getting to hear thoughts on the MCU since a lot of my friends have fallen off, and so my main engagement to the community or discussion on it is the lunatic asylum on Reddit, if at all. Yeah, don't do that. Don't go there. Don't go to Reddit. The MCU is in a weird place for me. I saw basically everything from Avengers to Endgame in theaters, but despite having more time and money than I did in the 10s, going into phase 4 plus, it's been, well, we can wait for $5 Tuesdays or Disney Plus. The shows, we can wait a few days or weeks, or I'm still going in on it, but it's not this must see as soon as possible thing for me now. It just feels like both too much, but not enough is coming out. I think that's interesting, actually. We're rushing headlong to the end of an entire saga that'll be much denser than Infinity was in a fraction of the time, but feels so much more underdeveloped despite all the extra material and supposed long planning, headlined by a villain who I've already watched Ant-Man beat in a solo film.
That was a great paragraph. That was all of that was very apt.
Right. He says, "Anyways, rambling about how much the MCU isn't making me angry, it's just making me disappointed. Aside, I wanted to mention I can confirm Brian made it as a Star Wars maker even before Young Jedi Adventures came out, because there'd be the occasional thread whining about how the show aimed at kids was a show aimed at kids, and thus the death of Star Wars."
Yeah. It was a real badge of honor.
It really is. He ends, "He hope you guys keep having fun. Look forward to more episodes and commentaries in the future." So a couple things. First of all, about the MCU. Like I think that the narrative is a little bit overblown about how it's just a house in crisis.
Sure.
And I truly think it's just a matter of a few nips and tucks here and there, and all it'll take is 2 hits in a row for things to get back on track.
Yeah, and I think they had to be a little bit of a runaway train for a minute, because things were going so well. So then you continue to operate a certain way and thinking that's what works. And then it hasn't worked as well as it did in the past for various reasons. And if they're smart, you take a look around and you adjust and you course correct and you operate well again, So I don't, I think they have a lot of opportunity to write the.
Well, it's the operative technique at the MCU had been that whatever ideas we have at any point in the process, if it's a good idea, we run with it, right? And so that means it's a good thing because it leaves you open to change. And that started with Iron Man, the first Iron Man, where they were making the thing and they didn't have a good way to wrap it up, to have Tony Stark defeat the villain in a way that was satisfying. And so in the film, and this was like this was in 2008 or excuse me, 2007. So they're racing to beat the writer's strike from happening, And the original plan was, explodey and Tony Stark wins. And they realized that wasn't emotionally satisfying. So they came up with the idea in post of having you remember in Iron Man, he Jeff Bridges goes up too high and the suit freezes up. Remember that?
Mhm.
And he's like, oh, you never figured out that thing, right? So it's like Tony Stark using his smarts.
Yeah.
And so that they came up with that in post, and they basically used, ADR and CGI to stitch that together,
Mm-hmm.
and it worked, right?
Yeah.
And so the lesson became, hey, we can do this all the time.
Yeah.
And maybe the lesson is, well, if you need to, sure, but ideally, figure it out beforehand, right?
Right.
Because you can do it once. You can spin one plate, but the Marvel assembly line at this point, it's multiple plates with little things on top spinning other plates.
Yep.
It's just too much,
Yeah.
It is not about woke this, that, and the other thing. However, as I said last time, the fact that people that it opened so low says people weren't even interested in going, and who knows what reasons that is. But then the fact that it dropped from weekend 1 to weekend 2 with like the biggest MCU drop ever, we're talking about the Marvels. It's like, okay, well, some adjustment is needed here.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm telling you, man, watch Loki season 2.
I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I watched it solely based on your recommendation because I think I had hit that point where I was watching. I've talked about this a lot, but I was watching everything, but it just wasn't all feeling worth the time. I didn't think any of it was bad. I was just sort of, it just wasn't necessary, or there were other things I wanted to watch. And Loki, then I'm not watching anything. So there could be good stuff that I'm missing because of that oversaturation. So because of your recommendation, we watched Loki, and I have to admit, 2 episodes in, we're like, okay. And the next night we were even thinking, I'm not interested in this, but Zachy said it was good. So Federica and I queued it up. We went through the whole thing, and it was very good. And I love the ending. I think that's a great thing to say about a Marvel movie, right? Like I loved
definitely
a wonderful ending. I can't help but think it might have been more successful as a movie. I don't know that it needed to be 6 or whatever episodes it was. A little, focusing on the things that really mattered, I think could have made it a really, really strong story with an awesome ending. It just felt a little, like I said, if it hadn't been for you, I don't know if I would have queued up episode 3 just because I felt like, let's go. But I love the characters. I thought it was, for people who are curious, I would recommend it, even admitting that it takes a minute to get going.
I'm just like, I was so immensely satisfied with the arc it gave this character.
Totally.
Right. Like if we go from the beginning of Loki, like Thor 1, 2011 to this, and this is the last time we ever see Loki, what a journey we've been on with this character.
So, and doesn't that just say it all? Like an incredible character. And I think, again, with the Marvels thing, like I'm so done with that woke conversation because it's like everybody showed up for Wonder Woman when that came out. Like we just want a good character. And I feel like they haven't served that character as well as they could. Everyone showed up for the first one, and it wasn't probably the best realization of that character, so the second one suffered. And like Loki is this incredible character, and there was a moment where he's running around these hallways with Owen Wilson, who's this like, basically like accountant in a suit kind of guy, and he's just them as buddies is so ripe. It's so fun, and you just love it. And seeing Owen Wilson going through all these sorts of things, and Loki like, no, come on, man, you're my friend. Like that just rippled through my body, like knowing who that guy is and the situation he's in now and the feelings he has for this other person and the drive that he has to complete the task at hand. Like that's good stuff. That's good stuff. That's why it succeeds.
I mean, it's Loki by way of Groundhog Day. But like the way they thread together, like
so funny,
right?
Yeah.
Like I was talking about this with my class where I was just like, because it just what'd you think of Loki? I was like, the final shot that we get of Loki's face.
Mm-hmm.
I love just this. emotional ambiguity of like, what is he thinking? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that if that's it, and I doubt it's it. I think we'll probably see Tom Hiddleston again at some point. But like when you really think about it, the Loki series, seasons 1 and 2, like it's not integral to the MCU in the sense that it's telling a completely side story. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And yet it's such a beautiful story, and it works. Like I think notwithstanding your point about it would have been a better movie, which I can absolutely stipulate that. But what I like as a show is that it's not like, oh, you have to watch a movie for this to pay off. No, it's a self-contained thing. It's like a little trade paperback.
Sure.
Yeah,
but with great character. Like that is like the perfect example of what Disney Plus can offer.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The
potential.
I mean, it's funny. Yeah, I mean, when I think back, because you and I, we really liked Werewolf by Night.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
And kind of the same thing, right? It's just doing something like that. Wouldn't have worked as a movie exactly, but it's like a perfect little thing, 45 minutes, whatever it was. And it's like a fun one-off,
Totally.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad my recommendation still holds weight, so that's gratifying.
Yeah.
Like I'm glad, like, having watched it, you're like, okay, Zach, he was right. Okay.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Definitely.
This little journey can continue a little while longer. In the first episode of this season, of the second season, where Loki's like kind of shifting in and out of time, and I love it's like Loki and Mobius, Owen Wilson, they're in the elevator, and he's like, "Oh, stop doing it! It looks horrible," Yeah. And it's like, you said, it looks like, no, it looks like you're being born or dying, and it's his delivery.
Oh, dude, Owen Wilson is.
What a national treasure that guy is,
dude. I was just about to say treasure. Yeah. He's so singular, and what he does is so endearing. It's great.
Kid, nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Here's one we got from James Olson, who says, hello again, Zach and Brian. I completed listening to your commentary track of E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Brian, you've heard of that movie, right?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah.
Came out.
He says, one of my favorite movies, and thoroughly enjoyed all the insights you had to say. I especially agreed with Brian's assessment of this film being the quintessential musical score to John Williams' library of countless classical movie themes and compositions. It's one of the few pieces of music that can still make me tear up. That's kind of nice.
Yeah.
I think Brian, you would agree. I remember going to see John Williams with you, and when he started playing E.T., I glanced over at you, and you just had this magical, faraway look on your face.
Yeah, it's still. When I see Williams at the Bowl, I still tear up. It's amazing, right? You're not even having the movie play in front of you, but hearing that music, it just casts a spell. It's just that incredible.
Yeah. I mean, that is one of his best scores. I mean, but that's a long list, obviously.
Oh man. I mean, yeah, I think when you talk about his scores, because there's like the adventure scores, you have the Star Wars or Indiana Jones, let's say specifically, which just absolutely punctuates the action and rouses you, like when Indy finally accomplishes something and dun, 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 plays. I mean, that's enough to be a legend for all time. But I think what's so interesting about E.T. is that music, as much as his music narrates a lot of Spielberg's films, I mean, E.T. is just on another level where it is another character in the film, it is, or a narrator. It's like a narrator off screen walking with you, and it doesn't call attention to itself. It's seamlessly a part of that narrative, and just absolutely makes you fly on the bikes. It makes you cry when E.T. dies. It makes you, giggle with tears in your eyes when E.T. comes back alive. It's wow, I'm getting like wobbly in my voice talking about it. It's true. I think it's an amazing thing to say when almost everything he makes is a masterpiece. But if I had to choose, I would think that might be his masterpiece.
Yeah. One John Williams score that we forget is a John Williams score is JFK.
Holy cow, Zachy. Are you like in my brain? Federica and I have been having a very JFK week over here.
Really?
And I was telling her about we've got to watch JFK, and John Williams does this incredible score. Sorry, keep going. This is amazing.
I mean, I'm screening it in my class right now, and it's a great score. It's a fantastic score.
Yeah.
But it's not very Williamsy at certain, especially when it gets into the sort of the meat and potatoes of the conspiracy, or I should say, quote, conspiracy, since it's all a bunch of Oliver Stone fever dream hugger mugger.
Yeah.
That's interesting though. I wouldn't expect Federica's seen it.
No, we watched. I want to say National Geographic on Disney Plus had a special about the assassination, and it featured all the people who are still alive who were there for all these major events. Obviously, the parade, and then Oswald and Jack Ruby shooting it, like all people who were there, like next to these events, and it was really interesting. But I found myself thinking, wait, wasn't Jack Ruby tied with the mob? Wait, is that Oliver Stone? Like I can't, I couldn't remember like the facts from the fiction. So it made me want to revisit the film and read more about it. And
I mean, that's the paradox is you have really, it is an incredibly gripping, engrossing masterclass in like a suspense thriller filmmaking, right? It's also just absolute historical nonsense.
Yeah.
And so I watched it about a month or so ago with my kids, and I had to tell them, I was like, guys, don't come away from this thinking this is anything resembling the truth.
Right.
Because I was like, it's going to screw you up otherwise. You know what I mean?
I would love to watch a good documentary about fact versus fiction. The people have said this, the movie says this. Here's why that can't be true. Here's what we know. Here, this is a mystery. I would love like a real.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Incisive sort of look at all of the JFK lore.
I think the film JFK, you have to view it as it's like Oliver Stone's primal scream at, looking at the 30 years, or at that time it was, just under 30 years since Kennedy's assassination, and sort of everything that he perceived as having gone wrong in the country. When you talk about Vietnam and Watergate, et cetera. And it's easy to look at, JFK by virtue of what happened to him, and then obviously Bobby Kennedy. It's easy to sort of project hopes and aspirations onto what they might have done.
Sure.
Right. And when in point of fact, you say, well, what most likely happened? Yeah, Lee Harvey Oswald did it. And, sometimes shitty things happen. It's like, that's kind of like, I think when you think about it, the ways in which people try to create conspiracies, it's because of this. We have a hard time grappling with the idea that sometimes, despite all your best effort, terrible stuff happens. And whether it's JFK or 9/11, there's that same drive to be like, oh, well, actually this, and why didn't this happen, and why did Bush or whatever? But it's like, no, you know what? Sometimes just bad stuff happens.
Yeah.
And it's in nobody's control. Sorry, I didn't mean to go down this road.
No, I think I agree with you. It's like we want to try to make sense of everything, or when something's kind of hinky, you use that word, like it's you want to try to make sense of things, but it's like, no, sometimes just weird things happen, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I was having this discussion with my brother not too long ago, and I was like, look, it's been 60 years now since Kennedy died. You're telling me that if there was a conspiracy, how many people, A, would it have involved? And B, you're telling me not a single person has come, like, with definitive proof in 60 years? Like, what are the odds of that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, sometimes stuff happens, but that does nothing to take away from what is, I think, a real masterful film achievement in JFK.
Yeah, I remember putting that on for the first time. I was house sitting, and I knew it was long, and I had the DVD, and I just could never bring myself to pop it in. But I was like, "Well, I'm not going anywhere. You know, I'm just going to be sitting at this house." And I mean, it is. It's like over 3 hours, I think, but it is. You do not feel it. It is just riveting.
The director's cut is 3.5 hours.
Okay.
And it is just it's half an hour of Kevin Costner saying back and to the left. Back and to the left. Okay. I think that was on The Critic. I should credit where due.
Yeah. Dude, that's something I say all the time, and I know no one knows what I'm talking about.
I know, brother. I got you.
Back and to the left. Thanks, man. Thanks.
It's, you know, there's a Seinfeld episode about how Kramer thinks that Keith Hernandez spit on him.
Yes.
And they do this whole JFK style reenactment.
I think about that a lot too.
Right. And I'm like, man, that meant something very different to the people watching it back then.
Right.
Like, would people even get it now? Because it so strenuously sticks to the Oliver Stone template, you know?
Right.
You know, people even get it. I don't know.
Well, even like for how many people were watching that were alive when that happened. I mean, that was, you know, versus like, sadly, it's almost like a pop culture thing to me. You know, like I experience all of these things through pop culture, the Zapruder references and all those sorts of things.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah. So in any case, does that mean we'll do a commentary track for JFK, Brian?
You know, there was a little part of me that's like, oh, that'd be interesting. But like, I just don't even feel qualified to talk about that stuff for like 3.5 hours, you know?
So you're saying there's a chance, is what
you're saying there's a chance.
James also asked Brian, you guys are doing an awesome job with your podcast. Thank you so much. Do you have any suggestions for any aspiring podcasters out there? Myself.
Well, something I wanted to say, because I thought we were about to wrap this up, but I want to say, James also added a personal story about seeing E.T. as a kid. And reading that email legit made me tear up. And I know a lot of that has to do with my personal connection with that movie, but hearing someone else's personal connection with it and understanding that and bonding with you over that, like reading that email, I'm speaking to James, that was really special. And I even told Federica about it. I'm like, man, this thing, I just read this and it just made me tear up. And I think that relates to having a podcast. I think if I were to try to make a podcast about just something random because I thought that's what people wanted to hear, I don't know that I would be passionate about it. You know, I don't know that it would make me stand apart if I was just talking about like table making or something, because there was like a lack of table making podcasts. But I think you and I, Zachy, the reason we started this was because we legit do this in real life. Like you were just out here for my wedding reception and we were like in a corner just doing this, talking about film scores, talking about, you know, JFK movies, you know, Seinfeld. Like this is just what we do. And I feel blessed that people enjoy hearing it and people keep coming back. But I think that reason might be is because we're not faking it. Like this is just what we do. This is what we love. And I think people who feel similarly enjoy hearing it and are probably having conversations with us as they're listening to this. So I think that's what I would say. Like find that thing that you just think about all the time, the thing that you wish you could listen to, the conversations you enjoy having. And then you are going to shine. Like your episodes are going to be on fire because that's what you do anyway. That's what you're passionate about. I think that'd be my advice.
I think that's pretty good advice. Nothing I can say on top of that.
And a good microphone.
That's definitely, yeah, I would agree with that.
That I forgot what it was, but I sent you some meme or something or like a Twitter thing where it was like having a podcast is like 90% of the time dealing with microphone issues or something. It was much funnier than that, but it's so true. Like, yeah, like find once you get the audio figured out, find something you're passionate about. There you go.
And the audio issues, as the first 10 or so episodes of our show can attest, may take a while to work out.
Dude, even, I mean, full transparency here, even when we did the In the Line of Fire thing, I was trying something different. I was using a different laptop and didn't realize that the settings were a little different. And when I was listening to it, I heard I was clipping every now and then, just like, the volume on my end was a little too loud.
Oh, no.
I was like, it never ends. It never ends. It wasn't the most egregious thing that's happened, but I was just like, you just think it's over and it's never over.
It never stops.
Yeah.
Here's one more note we got from Alex Naom, who says, "Good day, gentlemen. It's been a while since I wrote you last, but I've still been listening to every episode. I've recently listened to an episode which I played a few seconds of early this year, but then I thought best to wait. Recently, the time came for your Home Alone commentary, and it was phenomenal." Well, thank you. I love this movie so much, and it was joyful watching it along with two fellow lovers of this. And then Brian, the mention of Home Alone 2 came along, and boy, howdy, did you give it to it. I think this is me. This is less Brian. I think this is I have to own this one, I think.
Well, I got to say real quick, very, very briefly, speaking about just trying to do a podcast about the things you talk about anyway, my brother and I just had a 2-hour phone call yesterday, and a good chunk of it was talking about Home Alone and us giving it to Home Alone 2. So this is like, yeah, this is it's very funny.
He says, albeit in a fleeting moment you didn't stick the knife right in. I know that the general consensus is that it's a bit of a step down from the original, but I had never heard anyone speak against quite like you two did.
Sorry.
I haven't listened to our Home Alone episodes. I'm kind of curious what we said, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
Alex goes on, I took away from your comments that you thought the third act was more mean-spirited than the first movie. Do you think the setting of the rundown house and the bleakness of the color scheme in the house helps you along to that conclusion? I can certainly see that, and the traps are definitely more extreme than the first movie. That being said, for me, no trap makes me squirm more than the nail through Marv's foot in the first movie. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Your comments about the bricks were interesting too. I've never really taken it as brutal or vicious. It was cartoonish to me. Now, I might be telling on myself a bit there, but let's move on. I don't remember watching the first film as a kid. If I did, I was really young. I was 2 when it came out, but I vividly remember watching the second one on repeat on our VHS. So maybe watching them in reverse set the bar for me at a weird level. I think that could be true, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Up until a few years ago, when I fell in love with the film again, I did think of the first one as a little slow and boring. Oh, Alex.
Alex, no.
Oh, wait, he says, but now with the wisdom that comes in your 30s, I absolutely adore it. Okay. Crisis averted in that case. As always, I love hearing your commentaries about the interesting perspectives you bring to each film. I do still need to get around to watching Planes, Trains, and Automobiles this weekend. Will be the time, I reckon. I should mention, I of course, as I do every year, I rewatched Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and as I do every year, I was in tears at the moment when their car goes through the two trucks. Every year I watch that movie, every year I have trouble breathing, and just tears are pouring down my face of laughter every single time.
I love it. That's an all-timer for me. That I do not get tired of that movie. I marvel at that movie. That so many people have tried to make that movie again, and you just can't. You can't capture what they did. The comedy, the heart, the pathos, everything. I mean, it's just, oh yeah,
it's all just working.
Yeah. What the Home Alone 2,
Brian?
Yeah. There we go. So
let's get this out in the open.
This is amazing to me because I literally just had this conversation yesterday, like I said, with my brother. All I'll say is this: I love the color comment, by the way, because I do think about that sometimes. I do. My brother, Dan, talks about this all the time. He's like, man, I love Nolan's films because they remind me of how films used to look like in the 90s and when I was, all the movies that I love. And the way he grades them, the way he shoots. Obviously, he shoots on film and all that, of course. But I do get affected sometimes by colors in movies. So I think that is a astute thought. We were saying, just to sort of repeat the conversation he and I had yesterday, I think we hold Home Alone in such high regard because, much like Planes, Trains, that movie could so be whatever Home Alone 3 is. Like some kid in a house and there's burglars and, whatever. But like that movie, I actually think is a genuinely great movie. I think, but it's hitting on so many levels. The direction is great. The actors are perfectly cast. John Williams does the score. Like it's not filmed like a kid's movie or a comedy. It's filmed like an adult film, but it's just capturing these interesting things. Like
By the way, Brian, while we're talking about John Williams' score, here's what I want. I want the scene of Kevin like planning and preparing, but I want the JFK conspiracy.
Yes, snare drum.
Yeah, I want somebody to supercut that for me. I want somebody listening to do that for me.
I would love that.
Oh, anyway, go on. Sorry.
No, the last thing, and then I remember during the commentary, it was really I had not thought about it, but I was like, this movie has the patience to have that scene in the church between Kevin and his neighbor, and it's really sweet and heartfelt and like a kind of a growing moment for both of them. So it's just like that movie actually is a really good movie. And I think Home Alone 2, so going to what he said, this is kind of important. That was the first one I saw. And I do think it holds up. I think it's a genuinely great movie. And then seeing Home Alone 2, for me, it feels a little repetitive because it hits all the same beats. You have the pigeon lady, much like The Neighbor. You have all these sorts of things. So I don't like it as much because I'm so endeared to the first one. But my brother and I agreed. We're like, but the second one is still better than whatever some studio trying to make something and it being Home Alone 3. You know what I mean? Like the pigeon lady is sweet. And there is like some genuinely nice moments between them. Her saying like, you're going to forget me. And he's like, no, I won't. And then he buys the turtle dove. So they'll never, like there's good stuff in there. Like it's sweet, but it just, I think the first one hit me so much that the second one couldn't hit me in the same way. And I'm just, I don't know. It's just not the one I return to.
Well, a couple things. I think, first of all, I think Home Alone 2 has sort of the opposite effect of like Jaws 2. Jaws 2 gets lumped in with the bad sequels. Home Alone 2 gets lumped in with the good first one by a lot of people. And Home Alone 2 is no Jaws 2. Let me put it that way.
No.
I think for me, what it comes down to is that the first film, more than anything, it sets up Kevin as an underdog. And after the first movie, you realize the evil that's churning inside this little boy. And you feel bad for the wet bandits. You're like, God damn, leave him alone.
Well, I think, real fast, because I want you to continue. But that was a big observation I had, because I've seen it so many times, I don't think about it a ton. But in the first movie, it is all defense. Like, if they weren't doing what they shouldn't be doing, none of this would happen to them. Like the flamethrower over the door, they shouldn't be opening that door. The nail, they shouldn't be walking up those stairs. But Home Alone 2 begins with him literally taunting them and hurling bricks at their heads.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's another point, which is that there's a difference between being 10 and 12.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because at 10, you're precocious. At 12, you're a sociopath. Right? So I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of factors involved. So, but my kids recently went there because all of the Home Alones, all freaking goddamn 50 of them, however many they made, they're on Disney Plus now. And they went through all of them. And I was telling Mika, I was like, dude, you don't have to do this. Like all the time he's up to number 5 or whatever. I'm like, you don't owe them anything.
Wait, so what was his take? For me, I'm like, wow, they made a 4th one. I didn't even know that. But he's just watching them all. They all exist.
He just went through them. Like he felt committed.
Yeah. Did he sense a difference? Was he charitable to some of the?
Oh yeah. I mean, he's like, they all suck except for the first 2. Like they like the first 2.
Yeah.
Because one of the sequels, it's like 4 or 5. One of them, it's Kevin, but it's not Macaulay Culkin anymore.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. So it's somebody else, but it's the McAllisters.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
And it's like French. Yeah, and it's like French Stewart plays either Harry or Marv, one of them, I don't know. And it's like, it's real kind of bullshit, right? Because like the parents are divorced now.
Oh, come on.
And all this. I'm like, that's awful. I don't like any of that.
I know. Yeah,
right?
I don't like hearing it.
So, yeah, exactly. Right? So, yeah. I don't know. And then they made that one last year. I forget what it's called. With that annoying little shit.
I don't even remember the kid, but I remember, Aaron from The Office. I can't think of her name.
Yes, that's right.
But man, it was bad.
Kimmy Schmidt, right? I mean, that's
not her name, why can't I think of her name? I feel terrible.
What's her name?
I should know this. Hold on. But yeah,
this is getting old. Ellie Kemper,
yes. Actually, much like Miku, that was one where I started it and I was like, I hate this. Why don't I turn this off? But I was like, no, I felt like I had to complete it for some weird reason. And
that one, talk about weird story construction. That sets it up where you are clearly sympathetic to these two people who are in the position of the burglars.
Yes. Which is so
it's like,
weird.
They're going to lose their house or something, right?
And there's something that they need that's inside the house.
Yeah, that's right.
That will like save their lives, save their house. Like there's nothing malicious. They're not trying to steal from this family. And then we're watching this kid just torture them. And I'm like, please just give them the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and that movie, by the way, is like a Stealth Legacy sequel because Buzz is in that.
Oh, that's right. I think he plays a cop.
He's a cop. And he's like, yeah, my kid brother Kevin used to do this or whatever.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So I don't know what makes that worse, you know?
Yeah. He was in some other movie. It just reminded me, it's jogging my memory. I think Kimi, I think it was called, that Soderbergh movie. He was in that too.
Oh, the Buzz was?
Yeah. He had kind of he played like her neighbor or something that gets dragged into
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of Stealth Legacy sequels, Brian, there's this new Karate Kid movie coming out.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you sent me something.
Right? So Cobra Kai is ending.
Yeah.
But the Karate Kid universe lives on.
Mm-hmm.
And they put out this thing where it's Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan. They're going to star in a Karate Kid movie. So he's going to be Daniel and Jackie Chan is going to be Mr. Han from the 2010 Karate Kid, which we all thought of as like a remake.
Yeah, right.
But Sony looked at how successful Spider-Man No Way Home was, and they're like, what else can we multiverse here?
I would love if they didn't both exist on the same reality, but there had to be some sort of multiverse portal for one of them to come through, just because that's what the kids love these days, and so
that's what we do.
Daniel LaRusso is like in an alley, and this like hole opens, and he's like, "What? Just a minute ago, I was in Reseda."
I mean, what's funny about the 2010 Karate Kid, which I do like, I mean, it is a virtual remake of the Karate Kid in all the important ways.
Right.
So it's weird to be like, wow, this like weirdly familiar thing happened also, you know?
Yeah.
But I gotta be honest, Brian, I'm interested. I'll watch it.
No, me too. And I remember thinking the 2010 one, I was like, that was fine. Like I don't feel as passionate about it because I love the other characters, but I'm like, it's not bad.
It has a great score, James Horner.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah. But I was just going to say, like, it was enough for me to go, oh, well, that wasn't a waste of my time. But if a part 2 came out, I don't know that I would have gone, if I'm being honest.
Right.
But this is genius, right? Like, you put them together. Police Cops, movie film.
Yeah, sure. I
so,
mean,
like, now you get me to go.
The plan is to find a Chinese American actor to be the new lead character. Now, again, in the Karate Kid 2000, it's not karate, it's kung fu, and
right.
It's weird that, you know, we're letting this facade continue. Like, it's not karate. But anyway, obviously anything with Jackie Chan I'm interested in. I think put Ralph Macchio in. I don't know. I'm interested. I'm like, hey, I enjoy this universe. I'm glad it continues to exist in some form.
Yeah, you just know that in that movie they're going to have to call that out because the internet these days. So they're like, hey,
yeah,
you're like kung fu to me, like shut your trap,
yeah,
Daniel.
How can they not? While we're talking about legacy sequels, I thought this news was worth mentioning. Scream 7.
Yeah, right.
And how it's just like now what happened here is that we've had 2 successful new Scream movies that pick up as part of the original series, but they are doing a legacy thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The most recent one was just earlier this year and did well. The Assumption was also full speed ahead. Melissa Barrera stars as the main character. Jenna Ortega plays her sister. And Melissa Barrera went on social media and she made some comments about the conflict in the Middle East. And it was deemed offensive enough that Spyglass, the company that owns the rights, they just fired her.
Yeah.
And then like the next day, Jenna Ortega is like, oh, by the way, I'm not going to be in the next one either. And she had already made noises about leaving like before the strike had happened. But we and I talked about it. I feel like the timing of the announcement, I don't think it's a coincidence.
Yeah, because yes, she had been in discussion about things earlier, but her just sort of pulling the plug at that moment felt like a statement, maybe a statement of support for her friend or a statement against
one might assume. I don't think that's a reasonable assumption to make.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, without getting into all the stuff going on in the Middle East, I feel like it was an overreaction to fire Melissa Barrera.
It was kind of an amazing, drastic, action against her.
Yeah, and it's doubly bizarre because it's like in the wake of losing 2 of your lead characters, 2 of the core 4, if you will, of these new Scream characters, they're apparently going to have to go to a page 1 rewrite.
Totally. I mean, yeah, that was their movie. That was you have to start over. Those were the 2 leads.
Yeah. So at that point, I am kind of like, you know what? Maybe it's time to let this go. It's not actually going to ever go until, you know what I mean? Like, of course, they'll keep making them.
Or is this that moment where they finally pay Neve Campbell what she wanted?
That would be the smart thing, honestly, because I was thinking about that. I was like 2 leads in a row. They've treated pretty disrespectfully. 2 of Scream leads, right? Because Melissa Barrera was essentially the Neve Campbell of these new films.
Yep.
And I mean, I applauded Neve Campbell for being like, you don't want to pay me what I'm worth. Okay, then I'm out. If you know what you're worth, you get what you're worth.
Yep.
But now's the time. Yeah. Because I don't know what a Scream 7 looks like without, I mean, you know what I mean? Like those 2 twins, I guess, are the remaining characters, but I don't know that we want to watch a movie that's centered on them.
No, I mean, yeah. I mean, well, and then the lead, Melissa's character, was pretty integral to the lore of the film.
That's right.
So it's kind of seems like they were really trying to do something with that thread. You know who I felt bad for was Christopher Landon, the guy who was set to direct it, because
Oh yes.
He did those Happy Death Day movies, which I'm not a horror guy, but I love those movies.
You like both? I thought
they were such a breath of fresh air, so different, so fresh, so interesting. And now he gets to do this, like a Scream movie, and then it's just like all crumbling in front of him.
Yeah, he put out a statement. I don't know if you saw this. He put it on Twitter, and it was subsequently deleted. So make it that way you will. He says, "This is my statement. Everything sucks. Stop yelling. This was not my decision to make." And then that shortly disappeared.
Just.
Yeah. I think somebody was like, "Hey, stop it."
Yeah.
Okay, well, hey, let's take a short break. Oh, and actually, by the way, I wanted to mention this real quick. I had gotten a message on Twitter from Leonard, who said, "I can't believe you talked about both Richard Mall and Matthew Perry dying, and you, of all people, didn't mention the Batman connections for both." And I was like, well, I'll be darned. I didn't. Yeah. And Richard Mall, who played Bull on Night Court, he was, of course, Two-Face on the Batman animated series.
I don't know if I knew that.
How did I forget to mention that?
And then
Insanity.
Matthew Perry he was a huge Batman fan.
He was
right?
a huge Batman fan, which, if I'm being honest, I didn't realize until after he passed.
Yeah, I listened to his audiobook, and he has this funny, I'm going to bungle it, paraphrase, but he was basically like, he bought this, penthouse sort of apartment thing, and he's like, did I buy this because it reminded me of Bruce Wayne's penthouse in The Dark Knight? You betcha. Something to that effect, but I was like, oh, I had no idea he was such a fan.
He talked about it a lot. Like, he had a whole room in his house that was just Batman memorabilia, and like anybody who wanted to buy him something could just buy him something Batman related for a present.
Huh. Wow.
And I'm like, rock on. Good for him.
That's cool. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you, Leonard, for bringing that up. I am duly chastened and deeply ashamed. Let's take another short break. We'll come back. We got a big new release to discuss. And we are back. And you know who else is back, Brian?
Who's that, Zachy?
Why, it's Ridley Scott directing Joaquin Phoenix. What's it been, like 23 years?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's right.
Essentially, Joaquin Phoenix, by way of inhabiting the lead role in Ridley Scott's new film Napoleon, is sort of reprising the role of Commodus from Gladiator. That's what I see this. I see this as like the spiritual successor to that character.
That's really funny. Like a person in power who has sort of a meh.
It's just a whiny little bitch.
Yeah, right.
So Napoleon is in theaters right now, and it's either doing all right or it's flopping spectacularly. I don't even know what the metrics look like for a movie like this.
There's a lot of talk. I'm hearing this with this and Killers of the Flower Moon, and everyone's going, well, for a movie of that budget, not so great box office. However, it doesn't matter because it's for Apple Plus or Apple TV Plus or whatever it's called. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense as a concept, but like,
sure,
it's a lot of money, like I don't, wouldn't it be much nicer if it did make a lot of money at the box office? Cause
right.
I mean, is it really bringing in like $500 million worth of new subscribers to you? I don't understand that logic making that okay, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
But
I think for this one, well, I watched it, and so this is a long gestating project. Kubrick had his own Napoleon picture that he wanted to do way back in the day.
Man, I'd give anything to see that.
I don't know that this is to that what like Spielberg's AI is to
No.
I don't think it is that, but regardless, it's 2.5 hours. So this is the shortened version, as I found out after having watched the movie, which I kind of wish I'd known going in that. Tracking a big chunk of Bonaparte's life. Well, I mean, it's essentially from the time he rose to prominence to his eventual, exile. And this was a movie that I think it's staged remarkably well. I think the battle sequences are many of them are quite effective. But I had two thoughts. First of all, I'm like, Ridley Scott desperately needs to either find a new cinematographer or learn to not desaturate his films.
There was one shot where I was like, is this literally black and white?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was many sequences were just sort of murky nonsense. I think at the center, we have an interesting performance by Joaquin Phoenix. And by interesting, I mean, I found myself often wondering what he was going for. However, it is a film that about halfway through, first of all, I was like, oh God, we're only halfway through. And then I was like, I don't think I like this movie. And that's pretty much where I ended. I was like, I think this is, I think Scott's approach to this subject, I found it sort of impenetrable. And the idea that he's like, no, there's a 4-hour cut. And I'm like, well, there's not enough in these 2.5 to make me want to watch 1.5 more.
I found out about this for literally 4-hour, 10-minute cut that is coming to Apple TV Plus before I watched it. And I definitely watched it through that lens.
Okay.
I was like, oh, you took a 4-hour story and you hacked it within an inch of its life.
And it feels it, doesn't it?
100%. I wrote down, sometimes I try to write down thoughts so I won't forget my immediate thoughts. And I wrote down magnificent in scope, slight in story.
Oh yeah.
Right. It's the battles are incredible. I mean, the visuals are sumptuous. He's intriguing. I'll give him that. And I think Josephine is intriguing, but there is little to nothing by way of motivation, like context. It's just literally, I was like, this is like a $200 million adaptation of Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it literally, it's like, there's like 4 minutes, people talking, talk, new scene. Here's a new date. This is what's happening now.
Yep.
And then this new scene, date. Here's what's happening now. And that was very frustrating because it was like we were dipping into stuff, and I kept thinking about it in terms of like what's the nut at the heart of this story.
Yes.
And it's like it's the relationship between Josephine and Bonaparte. And I'm like, I would have gladly taken 2 hours of that and just excise the battle sequences.
100%. I don't think I understand them.
Yeah, that's right.
Like it sort of like, this was the love of his life sort of thing, and possibly for her as well. But I was like, well, I didn't get that.
But why?
But why? Like, I actually thought she kind of hated him, like I didn't.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just there, all the connective tissue between what we are given is not there. And I listened to another podcast and I heard someone saying they had a hard time following it because it was just jumping through time. And I can't say I had a hard time following it. I did, but there was nothing to make me emotionally connect with. Why are these battles even happening? A lot of times I was like, why are they doing this? Why is this war happening? Like, why?
The idea of Bonaparte's ambition, right?
Yes.
He wants to, and I'm like, yeah, let's give us a window into that.
What happened when he was a kid that made him that upstart, the guy who was willing to do the really crazy subversive first thing we see him do, which is really cool and amazing. And like, who is that guy? Why did he do that? What, yeah. And then explain the relationship between him and Josephine, and explain her and her feelings for him. And it's just, I'm interested in all of that stuff. And I would sit through a 3 hour, maybe even plus. I mean, I sat through Killers of the Flower Moon because I was never bored. I was interested in all of that stuff. And all that emotional relationship between them was so intriguing and like mysterious. And some of it was hard to understand, but I'm looking at it and I'm trying to figure it out because that's literally what happened. You're showing it to me, even though I don't understand why two humans would behave that way. They did. And I'm trying to get to the heart of it, and you're showing me these little things that are like nuggets for me to dig in and try to understand, but there's no nuggets here. It's just bullet points.
Yeah.
Beautiful bullet points.
I mean, I think fundamentally the question I left the movie with is, what does Ridley Scott want me to feel about Napoleon?
Yeah.
And I don't know because I mean, he, again, when I make the allusion to Commodus in Gladiator, it really feels like a progression of that same, right, sort of that same archetype. Why don't they like me kind of thing, like, because I thought he was a whiny little douchebag in Gladiator too. And I mean, that's the point, 100%. Right? And so it's doing something similar, but again, I'm like, well, this was a substantial person in terms of like the history of the world, right? And I was like, well, if Ridley Scott wants to tell this story, what is it about this story? Like, are you saying that, like, despite all of these insecurities and all these personal foibles, he was still able to achieve these remarkable successes? Are you saying that the successes were, by accident? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, and by the way, there's one battle sequence in particular I thought was remarkable. It's where I believe he's fighting the Russians, I think, and it's on a frozen lake.
Yeah,
terrifically staged, very gripping, you know.
Yep.
That was one sequence that really stood out to me, but the rest of it, there was a sameness to it, and there wasn't a sense of, well, what is this for? What is this about? There's a scene, you know, so he historically, right, he was exiled to Elba, and then he made a play to retake his command, and you see, you know, the military joins him again.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but based on what? Like, what have we seen up to this point that would prompt that kind of loyalty?
I was just about to cite that scene based on what you were saying, because it's a really great scene that I don't understand at all.
Yeah.
you know? And I, you know, I've visited Paris now a couple times because Federica is part French. And so I'm realizing, like, there's statues of Napoleon there. I'm like, I don't know who Napoleon is. I really don't. I don't remember anything I've learned about him. So I was kind of going into this excited to, you know, catch up a little bit. And I don't feel the movie did that at all. But so then afterwards I was Googling a little bit, like fact versus fiction and whatnot. And basically everything was saying what you just said, where it's like, he is so important to history. He was this brilliant strategist. You know, people apparently would follow him anywhere. And I didn't get any of that from this movie. And I would have loved to have had that. I would have loved to have seen why people felt the way he did. People being like, oh, this is impossible. No, not impossible. You know, and then like him setting up the strategy, like, let's see it. You know, I want to see these things. I want to understand why he is this figure that everybody thinks is so important. But the movie, I mean, he just seems like, this sniveling sort of weirdo who just was involved in a lot of important things. And I don't even know that I got that it was because of him that all this stuff was happening. You know, like he's just
like
there.
There's a scene where his brother, I think it's his brother, who talks to him here, who's like, the council, they want to make you king.
And
I'm like, what?
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Yeah.
I also should mention, I mean, you know, Ridley Scott, he's sort of being dicey with depicting certain aspects of history, cutting stuff out. I'm just like, how do you leave out the historical moment when he ate that whole big bowl of ice cream?
Yeah, I know. That was one of the significant markers in his life when he freaking time traveled.
I don't get it, man.
Yeah. No, you know, Dan, my brother, and I, he had seen it already before I saw it. And we were saying, I would have given Ridley Scott all the credit in the world if he had actually filmed that as if that was a thing that happened to him. And they didn't get Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter. They cast people to play Bill and Ted. And it's just this thing where he like goes to the future for a minute, goes to a water park, then comes back. Waterloo happens. You know, like if that just was played deadly straight.
I see. What I would have liked is just in the background of some scene, we see the Ziggy Piggy T-shirt.
Yeah, you know what? That's more likely. But yes,
it's a thing. That's one of the things he cut past. But no, it's part of the historical record.
No, it happened. No, but adding to what you were saying, just not understanding certain things with Josephine. Even, I mean, I don't know that I understand her feelings for him, because at first she seems to like look down at him a little bit, like
in the beginning where she's like, "Don't tell me your name" or something like that, right?
Yeah, he says that to her, right? Like I thought, says, "Don't tell me your name."
I thought maybe I'm wrong, but regardless, it's kind of it's like a.
But no, she's sort of like, standoffish. I'm hot and I have the control over you.
That's right.
And I was like, okay, got it. And like he's kind of, obsessed with her or whatever it is. She controls him. She's got the strings. But then like there are things that happen. They have their ups and downs, and she's crying over him. Yeah. And I was like, when did that happen? Or is it because she doesn't want to lose status? Is it because why? What is she sad about? Like what is it? Like I just can't believe I didn't understand.
I mean, my sense is that before he was king, he needed her, and then he becomes king, and now she needs him. So you have this,
which is what though? What does she need? Like, what is she? Is it she likes being queen? Is it she needs the money? Is it like she
my thought is like, oh, you know, he's like obsessed with me now. He's not obsessed with me anymore, and I want that again.
And does she just need the desire the attention from him, or did she actually eventually ever fall in love with him?
Right.
That was still a little, even all the way through the end, I sensed that there was a real connection there, but I don't know that I ever saw that scene where it connected for her.
Here's the other thing. Were you wondering what happened to her son?
Yes. At one point I was like, doesn't she have kids?
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Like, it's just never mentioned again.
Yeah. But you know, yeah, go ahead.
Actually, real quick, Brian, we haven't mentioned at all that I thought Vanessa Kirby was very good in this. I really liked her.
Totally. Yeah. Everybody, even whatever thing Joaquin Phoenix is doing, it's very watchable. And whatever he's doing is interesting, whether or not it is accurate to Napoleon or however he was thought of. But what she's doing, I think, is completely interesting. I can understand she's so captivating and why he would be captivated with her. And
right.
You know, I thought everybody was really great.
Did you recognize Rupert Everett? It took me until the credits to be like, oh, damn, that was Rupert Everett.
No. Wait, who is he?
See, he's the English guy, the leader of at the end, remember when they're...
At Waterloo?
That's right, yeah.
No, I did not at all. And now I can see it. Now I got it. No, amazing. He was
like
good.
Remember when Napoleon is captured and he's in the room and on the ship, you know, and it's just the two of them talking.
Wow. Yeah. Wait, by the way, we got a note about getting into spoilers with Flower Moon. And just kind of veering into that. Maybe
okay, well, I mean, this is not even a situation like it's history. I mean,
okay,
like even
it's
more.
True, it's true. I'm just, who was it? Parvez who wrote in?
It was Parvez, yeah.
Okay, Parvez, I see you. I'm just saying, I see you.
Parvez needs to sit his ass down. That's what I think.
No, that's amazing. I did not see that. I mean, like I said though, everybody is cast really well and is very interesting, and that's what makes the film so disappointing. And I have to admit, maybe I am a glutton for punishment, but knowing that there's a 4-hour version of this, I'm curious. I'm curious.
That was going to be my next question. Like, are you? So here's what's going to happen here. I'm going to let you watch that.
Yeah.
And tell me all about it because I'm not doing that.
Well, it's like Kingdom of Heaven, right? I mean, when that movie came out, people were like, huh? Mm-hmm. Right? But then he comes out with his director's cut and they're like, oh, this is like one of his best movies.
That is very true.
And I am wondering if that, I don't know that it's going to ever be like historians have not been too kind to this movie because of all the liberties Scott takes with true events. So I don't think it's going to correct that. But as just a movie, an overall experience, I do wonder if I will understand more, feel more. I don't know. I could see myself maybe doing it.
well, if the director's cut of this is on par with the director's cut of Kingdom of Heaven, you be sure to send out the bat signal and let me know.
I will.
I'll wait patiently for your verdict on that. But I think that's where we landed with Napoleon. It kind of landed in the same place. I did not know what your takeaway was going to be, but Destiny brought us this lamb chop. So
yeah, great line. Great line.
It really. I want a T-shirt with a graphic of Joaquin Phoenix's Napoleon. It just says Destiny has brought me this lamb chop.
Yeah. That I mean, as long as I guess I'm going to say it. I'm not going to do the spoiler thing, but just talking about some specific things. Yeah, some of those things were funny. The line where he's like saying to that guy, "You think you're so great because you've got boats?" That's right. You're so great. That was hilarious. And then I liked the divorce scene. I thought Vanessa Kirby was so good in that scene because she's reading this thing that's been written that she has to say as a statement, that she doesn't want to get divorced, but she's saying this statement and she like kind of laughs a couple times. Like she can't believe that she's being forced to say this stuff out loud. Like she's not laughing. It's that sort of nervous, like, is this really happening laugh? It was so good. But she's also like holding back tears. I that was one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
I agree. Very well done. Yeah.
Yeah. And in all the battle stuff, I gotta say, I mean, I say this a lot, especially with Nolan movies. I miss like scope, you know. And you look at something like Close Encounters or like Raiders of the Lost Ark, where Spielberg's in the desert and he has like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of extras, and you're like, wow, you know, that's amazing just to look at. And this movie, I'm sure it has computer assistance, but I didn't think about it. Like it was the scope of the battles is really amazing, and it puts you into the horror of war. And I actually did think, you know, there's something I've never seen before. You see a horse get hit by a cannonball.
Yes. And just, it's like innards explode outward.
Yeah. And I was like,
it's freaking horrifying.
I just had this thought, like, this is awful. Like I was watching people just get torn in half by cannonballs. And I was like, we've always done this. You know, you go back like biblical times, like what, like it's just all the way up to today. Like we just keep doing this to each other and it's awful, you know, like, but I just thought he captured the horrors of war really well. And yeah, I just wish it had been in a movie I could have connected with better.
I mean, going back to the cinematography, right? Dariusz Wolski, who's kind of his guy. He's been, I think, since at least Prometheus, right? And other than from Prometheus to now, other than like The Martian, I can't think of another movie, and that by necessity because of the setting, but I can't think of another movie that isn't like washed out gray tones.
I know.
Right. And there's this sameness, like The Last Duel, which I really liked. Same thing.
You know, I need to watch that. I haven't watched that, but I mean, but his images are amazing. I hate the way he's presenting those images.
That's right.
Yeah. But man, talk about, by the way, I mean, just like his filmography is all over the place. Like, you know, coming from House of Gucci to this, to like, he did Matchstick Men, which I think is like an underrated gem. Blade Runner, you know, it's just, I kind of love that. Like you can't guess what he's going to do next. All the money in the world.
I mean, I just rewatched Blade Runner like 2 days ago with my oldest. And I mean, there's a reason that's considered one of the greatest movies ever made. I mean, it's so freaking good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And it's the thing is, like, you watch a movie like that in 2023 and you're like, oh, this looks like so many other movies. And you're like, yeah, but it started here.
Yeah. This is it. This is ground zero. Yeah.
You know? But seriously, like you look at Exodus, which I talked about recently. They all have the same washed out look, and I'm like, mix that up a little bit, you know?
Oh, you reminded me, because you thought Exodus wasn't that bad, right? That's another one I want to.
Yeah, I mean, you know, with an asterisk.
Sure.
I think there's enough in it to make it worth. I like it better than Napoleon.
Yeah. Well,
you know, I did that, but any other thoughts on Napoleon?
No, I wish it's something I could recommend. I think the performances are interesting. I really do feel like, if I'm being charitable, and you imagine there is like a 4-hour great version of this, great. But it's really sad then to see, like, to pay money and to leave your house and to go to the theater to see like the hacked up 2.5 hours that they cobbled out of it.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's still a time commitment. I mean, the 2.5 hours, it's not nothing, you know?
No, that's what I mean. Like, is that worth the effort, knowing that there's going to be, I suppose, his definitive version coming? My brother was like, I wish I'd known that. I might have waited.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What's your final?
I mean,
would you tell someone to go see it?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, it is ultimately a thumbs down for me. I mean, there's stuff in it that's intriguing, but not enough to circumnavigate a lot of just unwieldy stuff that you sort of have to get through.
Yeah.
So not worth it for me. But again, hey, if that 4-hour cut is somehow revelatory, yeah, hey, let me know. You know,
I will. I think why I'd be willing to do it. Sorry, I was say the reason I'd be willing to do it is because I wanted this to be good.
Sure.
Like, I want this movie. the promise of whatever it was supposed to be. So like maybe there's a little part of me that's hoping that it exists.
I think that Ridley Scott is somebody who, no matter what he does, I'll always be interested in at least giving it a look. He's just that kind of director. But yeah, to your point, I mean, his filmography caroms wildly between your 1492 and your Thelma and Louise. You know, within like those things came out like about 8 months apart. You know,
wild,
right? Black Rain. Remember Black Rain?
I know it exists, but I have not seen it.
See, Black Rain I think it's a good movie. It's totally worth watching, but it's also like you forget, oh yeah, I guess it's Ridley Scott. You know what I mean? Because it's such a squarely late 80s action movie, you know?
Sure.
And you know, I think if nothing else, the fact that Ridley Scott just goes from one thing to the next, it's like, man, the guy never slows down. I got to respect that. I respect that hustle.
Yeah, I mean,
he's got Gladiator
almost
80. Yeah.
Wow.
And by the way, Gladiator 2, I think that's coming out next summer, I'm assuming.
Oh, right.
We're going to talk through the first Gladiator, right? I feel like that's a thing.
Oh, we should. I love that movie. Yeah.
Right? We totally should.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, we can expect that soon. Yeah. But I think that's a good place to leave this discussion. What do you say?
Great. This was fun.
Covered a lot of ground. I think there's still yet more ground to cover based on how much footage Scott wants to put back in. So
yeah,
maybe it's a to be continued conversation. I guess we'll see. But regardless, if you've seen Napoleon and you disagree with us, you can let us know your thoughts. You can email us at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit like on our Facebook page, facebook.com/moviefilmpodcast, and message us there. As for me, if you're looking for me online, you can find me on social media, be it X or Instagram or etc. at Zacky's Corner. That's ZAKIS Corner. I also have a couple articles coming up later in December. Look for my look back at Tombstone for its 30th anniversary at IGN.
Cool.
What about you, Brian?
I have episodes of Young Jedi Adventures that are available on Disney Plus, and it also airs on Disney Junior. And I just had a couple people recently telling me that they're showing their kids Puppy Dog Pals, and it's one of those things where, you know, it's a little bit in your past, but it still exists on Disney Plus, and new kids are finding it and loving it, and people are excited to tell me that, and it never ever is not exciting to hear that. So I want to plug that too, Puppy Dog Pals. It's a super fun show that's on Disney Plus, and it's there to be discovered by your kids today.
I love hearing it.
Yeah.
So with that, on behalf of my partner, Brian Hall, my name is Zachy Hassan. This has been Movie Film 280. We will catch you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Welcome, friends. It's the Movie Film Podcast. Movie Film Podcast. Enjoy the show. Zachy and Brian are talking about the movies. Movie Film Podcast on the radio.